Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of new faces out there. That's great. Thank you. I just would like to call the special council meeting for Monday, October 6th to order. I'd like to acknowledge that Councillor Day is joining us electronically. She's on the screen. Welcome, Councillor Day. And Councillor Jensen is away for this meeting, but we have quorum. Before I start, it's an honor to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people, represented today by the Songhees and Kasepsin nations. We're grateful to work, live, and play in this special place. Item 2, which is the approval of the agenda. After watching the discussion from the Infrastructure and Transportation Committee meeting on the City of Colwood Sustainable Infrastructure Replacement Plan 2024 draft, I'd like to move this item from the consent agenda, item 7.3, and add it to new business as item 9.3. At this point in time, may I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's amended special council agenda? Thank you, Councillor Jordison and Councillor Grove. Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Just quickly, I just have a couple messages here. Unfortunately, this month, we will having 3 council meetings, this special council meeting and 2 regular council meetings, plus some in-camera meetings. And I'd just like to apologize for that because last month was a strange month. We had 1 council meeting at the beginning of the month, and then we had the Union of BC Municipalities conference for the week. So we didn't have a regular council meeting. So there's a lot of items to get done here, a lot of business for the city. So unfortunately, we've had to schedule these extra meetings here. And so that's basically my message here. The second thing I just wanted to quickly bring up here, not all members were present at a meeting that we had. I'm going to go back to following our own policies as far as how many times you can speak to an agenda item with council here. The current policy is that once the motion is made and it's second, each councillor has the opportunity to speak to it twice, up to a maximum of 5 minutes. And I'm just going to play by that rule because some of the items we seem to go round and round in circles and say the same thing over and over and over. So I'm going to restrict that moving forward. Okay, I just want to move on to item 4 is the adoption and receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes from the September 8th meeting? Thank you. Councillor Olson and Councillor Grove. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And at this point in time, we're going to move on to public participation. There were no written submissions that were received prior to the agenda publication and 1 written submission that was received after agenda publication, and that will be appended to the agenda tomorrow. I'd like to thank the public for your written submission. No members of public have been registered to speak virtually. And at this point in time, I'd like to open the floor up for members of the public who are allowed to present concerns or ask questions of council. Alternately, you can wait till your agenda item comes up on the normal agenda. Can I just have a show of hands, anyone that wants to wait to speak to an agenda item? You want to wait till your agenda item, and which item is that one? 10.1. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir. Okay, 10.1. Okay, I shall open the floor up to anybody else that wishes to speak under public participation at this point in time. Mr. Day.
Good Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the only letter writer and the only one to speak, and you've been successful in stifling any words from the public. But anyways,
Yes.
With Thomas. The council has not been able to stifle any.
I don't want to.
Okay, thank you. Yes, if I can get you to contain your
Yes.
comments.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let you proceed.
Okay. A little frustrated with the lack of knowledge of the sewer allocation and how it's going to affect the future of Colwood taxpayers, and that all this development that's being approved, and everyone seems to be living with this denial that there is a limit of how much sewer allocation Colwood has. Royal Beach by itself is Colwood's total sewer allocation. Anything about that is not going to happen without a lot of penalties. So I'm here to talk about the Latoria Creek floodplain that's next to the Latoria Road, where there's plans for even more development. And this is, again, the same as before, where it doesn't matter what people say, but proposing 6-story buildings, inappropriate 6-story buildings, where nothing like that would be in the OCP, next to 1- and 2-story buildings, blocking out all the sunlight. This seems to be a developing thing that's happening with this council, and it's inappropriate. Staff continues to mislead the public, and I see it also from council in that I see in the North Area Plan here, it's got a chart, and it shows the North Latoria proposal as 54.4 liters per second, and that's Colwood's total flow. But I got a little bit more. Where the other chart, the big green line, is mislabeled as it's 127 liters, and this are 11 million liters per day. And this is what Colwood's OCP was calculated to be in 2022 before Royal Beach's total allotment of all Colwood sewer capacity was taken in one go. Yet we still continue to have these kind of developments happening in Colwood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wishes to speak from public? See none, I shall move on. The public participation is closed. I will move on to delegations, and I can introduce Kathleen Schmalz, President of Arts and Culture Colwood, who's going to do a quick presentation, give us an update. Over to you, Kathleen. I'll get you to push the button there. There you are.
Good evening, councillors, staff, and members of the community. I am going to just do a quick brief of what has happened at Arts and Culture Colwood in the past year. We've had a super busy year and things are going really great. Oops, except maybe not going great when I try to press. Okay, there we go. Hang on. We got everything going now. Hang on. There we go. All right. I feel like my voice is extremely loud. Is that really loud?
No,
Are you guys okay? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have had a lot of chance to collaborate this year, and we've worked with Reimagine and let them use our space for 2 of the workshops that they've conducted this year. We worked with Ecole Royal Bay Secondary School and had a 3-week exhibition with them. Federation of Canadian Artists, West Shore Arts Council. We did a mural project with them. City of Colwood volunteer coordinator and City of Colwood staff for the Lagoon Arts and Culture Festival, and amazing amount of assistance with that. It was just great. So here are some images of the fabulous mural that is now in front of the Goldfinch Arts Center, and some of the students working on the mural. So the new board came on board a year ago, right after the formerly Insight Festival. And this year we've made 15 major changes in the running of the Arts Center. And all of those changes seem to have just been going really extremely well, from adding the gift shop to lots of broadening of what we do and who we work with. And our membership is still only $20 a year. And visiting the exhibitions is always free. So here are some of the members exhibitions that we had this year. We had 7 members exhibitions, mostly non-juried and a couple of juried shows. The artists help us run the center by paying a hanging fee and also a 25% commission on their sales. And sorry, this is so slow. We also have professional exhibitions. We had 4 this year. And these exhibitions show us what the arts can be. The members and also the Colwood public. Here are some of the amazing images from one of the professional exhibitions. And we had a professional exhibition with artist Ian and conservationist Ian McAllister. And you can see our space filled with 94 people that came to hear Ian's talk. And I can imagine that most of those people had never stepped through our doors before. So it was really exciting for us to have all those people there. We now have an avenue for people to propose professional exhibitions on our website. And our gift shop rotates every 6 months, and we have 60 artists currently in the gift shop. At Cole Royal Bay teachers, these are some of the teachers and their students' work. They will be showing again this year, and they filled our building with a lot of vibrancy and youthful energy. We're getting some press these days, although the Arts Center was called a gallery, but we have some work to do there. But speaking of it being called a gallery, there is no Arts Center classification for the Best of the City Awards. And we came second in art galleries only to the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria this year. The open mic is going strong. We have open mic twice a month, and we employ some of those musicians for our openings as well. We're trying to encourage the professional shows to have a really fun component to them. So the Federation of Canadian Artists is doing a live portrait painting session coming up. And here is our model, Ed Bain. So that should be really fun. The Literature Committee has sponsored some author readings and has a music and poetry evening coming up. And we're doing a fundraiser this fall for the Goldstream Food Bank. We want to make sure that we continue to be really good citizens in the community. So it's going to be a dessert plate fundraiser where it's $40 a plate and people can take home their handmade plate afterwards. And we're continuing to try to broaden our demographic and currently working with Ann Downton, City of Colwood's youth coordinator, to try to do a pilot for a youth group. And we also hope to repeat the mural project with West Shore Arts Council next summer. And we're, oh, hang on a second here. I don't have the best luck with the, here. We also have a seniors group that comes every 8 weeks and works with our coordinator, Sunny Ba. And we're also starting to work with some newcomers groups as well. Here are some of our 55 active volunteers. And retired RCMP volunteer helping with the parking. Come on, move. There we go. Lagoon Arts and Culture Festival was a big success this year. We had around 900 people come. And one of the highlights was the mayor's pancake breakfast. Thank you to the staff and the council members who helped out with that. It was really, really fun. And people were so impressed with the beautiful location. And so it will be there from now on. There's some more Lagoon Arts and Culture Festival. There's the numbers of different people that we had involved in the festival, from the pancake breakfast to the Indigenous showcase, 26 artists in tents, 42 performers, 27 artists in a plein air exhibition inside, etc. And then the 900 attendees. So we're really happy with that. Cultural component at the festival, we included an Indigenous showcase. And those of you who came to the festival, I think you couldn't help but be incredibly impressed with the beautiful work and the really nice social manner of the artists that were in the showcase. We also had the Lakwanga dancers, Firasudo dancers, the drummers, the Mafaro Marimba, etc. At the festival. And what who you see on the left there is Marlene Howell, who's going to be doing an exhibition about the Japanese internment in July. And here are some of our grants and sponsors. Major sponsors, City of Colwood, thank you so much. Path and Beachlands are also sponsors. And upcoming grant applications we'll be working on this year. Many of these are for the festival, but we're trying to work on some other grants to help us run the organization as well. And this didn't happen on September 27th because Mayor Doug and I both had a cold, but he's going to come and help us with a workshop that will help us reorganize our priorities for the coming year. And we really appreciate that as well. So that's it for me, unless anyone has any questions for me.
I will open the floor for questions from council. Councillor Olson, followed by Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Kathleen. You are so ambitious, and I just wanted to thank you so much and congratulate you on all of your successes and accomplishments. I think that we're all so pleased to see what you're doing with the Arts Center, and we so desperately needed it, and I just love what you're doing. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I'm also really excited and pleased to see that you're still keeping that membership kind of at that entry, that $20, and that entry to the festivals and events are still free. So removing that barrier for the community to be able to come and enjoy the space. And I just think you're doing such a great job. So not a question, just wanted to make a comment. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's a lovely board to work with that we have. So yeah, they're great.
Councillor Jordison.
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to say thank you for everything that you've done. And when I envisioned this space and what it could be, this is exactly it. So I'm just really appreciative to you and the board and for everything you're offering. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's lovely. Thanks.
Councillor Grove.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Oh, it's wonderful, the energy there. It's wonderful this year, though, seeing it blossom. And participating with any event is always such a treat. The diversity of what's going on in the programming here coming that you've presented, some of the things I know about, it's just really exciting to be part of all of that. And the pancakes weren't too bad.
That's thanks to our food safe person, Jill, behind us here. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, Kathleen, I just want to, I give you a shout out right now, you and your board. You've, as stated here, you folks have just done a marvelous job, just tremendous. The energy, the enthusiasm that you've brought, and the word that I hear throughout the community is the inclusivity. Now, you've made it a lot more inclusive. You've hit a lot of the demographic age groups right now, and so I would say by far your most successful year, and it's all because of the leadership of yourself and your board. So I've never, there's too much energy there. You're like little Pac-Man, just bouncing all over the place. So it's phenomenal. And I just like to thank you so much. A lot of, we don't have to go far to list all your accomplishments, because you've had a lot of major accomplishments, including getting that gift shop stood up. So pretty phenomenal. So amazing work. And to you and the board, thank you on behalf of the city. Thank you so, so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And it goes the other way too, to see the city staff working to try to finish the bathrooms outside before the festival was just awesome. And that's only one of the big boosts that we got from city staff and councillors. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Shall move on to item 7, which is the consent agenda. There's only 2 items on the consent agenda. 7.1, the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. 7.2, the Capital West Accessibility Advisory Committee Terms of Reference. Anyone can remove any other item off this, or we can just do it with one motion to pass it. And we can move on to the next step. Please. Okay, thank you. Okay, and Councillor Ward seconds it. Discussion? Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, I shall move on. Thank you very much. Item 8, this is, I received a letter from Pathways on serious mental ill from the Pathways Serious Mental Illness Society. And it was a letter to all the mayors of BC. It was a charter challenge. I hope everyone's had a chance to read the letter. It's pretty straightforward. And before I ever jump in and commit the city to say that we're behind this, I'd like to come to council to make sure that everyone is on board before I do anything. So, it doesn't really require any action from us right now at this point in time, but from what I understand, there is a letter that's going to be circulated, and they're just going to get a number of all the mayors to sign off on it. But like I said, before I commit our city, I just wanted to make sure council was comfortable with the letter. So that's all the motion is, as you can see, the staff recommendation. So can I just get someone to move it, please? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Ward and Councillor Olson. Discussion? Seeing none, motion carries. Move forward. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. If I can get Mr. Johnson, if you could please introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi, members of council. This new item of business 9.1 is the Colwood Rent Bank, the annual update. Matt Blakely, our senior planner, and Mari Bosomworth, our manager of planning, are here to provide the presentation that is loaded, should you wish to receive it, and answering any questions that council may have. There's not a motion required with this. This is an update, an annual update for your consideration.
Okay. Let's proceed then. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as Jason said, this item is to provide an annual update on the Colwood Rent Bank program, which is operated by the Community Social Planning Council of Greater Victoria in partnership with BC Rent Bank on behalf of the City of Colwood. So just as a quick reminder, Council approved an annual allocation of $30,000 from the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund through the 2023 to 2027 financial plan to support this program. As per resolution R 2023-106. So this resolution requires an annual report on the program's performance ahead of each year's budget deliberations. So I will not actually be presenting today. I'm going to introduce the presenter, Miranda Levert, a case manager with Community Social Planning Council and the Greater Victoria Housing Security and Rent Bank Program.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Matt, for the introduction. My name is Miranda, and I'm a case manager with the Greater Victoria Rent Bank. I'm just here to give an update on our activities in Colwood in the past year and the assistance that we've been able to offer through the support of the city. Right, so the Greater Victoria Rent Bank provides interest-free loans for low to moderate income individuals facing temporary financial hardship in the Greater Victoria area. We assist individuals who are unable to access other financial assistance programs. And the purpose of our program is to prevent eviction and provide short-term housing stability for individuals experiencing unexpected financial setbacks. All right, and to provide an overview of our activity from the last year, between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025, we received 33 applications from Colwood residents, and we saw an average rent to income ratio of 68%. Now, the rent to income ratio reflects the proportion of an individual's rent that they spend, or of their income that they spend on rent relative to all of their other expenses. Now, as you can see, it is a bit higher in Colwood than the Greater Victoria Rent Bank average of 63%, which we will touch on later in the presentation. All right, in terms of funding that we allocated, we distributed 11 loans and 1 grant for Colwood residents, totaling $25,830 in funding and supporting 34 people, including 19 children. Our average loan amount was $2,041, and we had an average grant amount of $695. However, that was just through the 1 grant. We recently received this grant funding through Reaching Home, and that's been able to allow us to support individuals who aren't necessarily eligible for our loan program and prevent them from slipping through the cracks. Now, to compare some of these statistics to the Greater Victoria Rent Bank averages that we've been seeing, sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble getting it to.
Oh, there it is.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, so it's a bit fuzzy up there, but Colwood applicants received 9.6% of our loan funds distributed, despite only making up 4.5% of our applicants. At 55.9% of people impacted by funding in Colwood were children. And the approval rate for Colwood applicants is nearly double that of the Greater Victoria Rent Bank average of 18.8%. Now, we're going to take a look at who exactly is applying for support. So as you can see, here, I'll read the graph out a little bit just due to the quality. Thank you. There we go. All right, looks like we've made it to the correct slide. So the majority of Colwood applicants are citing health crises as the primary reason for needing financial assistance. We're seeing over 1/3 of our applicants from Colwood citing that reason, as well as 1/4 for an employment crisis, around 1/4 for a financial crisis, and 6% each for a personal crisis or a housing crisis. Now, some examples of a health crisis could include things like having to take unpaid sick time off of work or a workplace injury. All right, so around 9.1% of Colwood applicants report that they're experiencing violence compared to the average of 11.2% across Greater Victoria. 12.1% report awaiting government benefits. This could include income assistance, persons with disability, Canada Child Benefit, Canada Pension Plan, employment insurance, or workers' compensation. And that's slightly lower than the average of 14.8%. Now, over half of our Colwood applicants are living with children, compared to the Greater Victoria Rent Bank average of 32.5. and significantly more report being part of a family unit rather than a single parent household. Now, this could account for that higher average rent to income ratio as they have larger household sizes. Right, and looking deeper into the housing type and composition of applicants received from Colwood, 6.1% were in subsidized housing compared to the average of 10.8%. Colwood applicants are paying more than rent on average at $2,093 versus the average of $1,643. And the average household is greater than the average in terms of number of members, so 2.67 members compared to 2.01 across the rest of Greater Victoria. And this ties back to that higher rent to income ratio as well. Thank you. All right, in terms of impact on the community, the Greater Victoria Rent Bank has been able to impact several members of the community, including adults and children. We have also been able to help prevent eviction and ensure stability for these low to moderate income families. As we all know, it's much easier to prevent eviction than to try to support people through that transitional process. And we also play a key role in maintaining housing stability in the face of unexpected financial crisis. So going back to that previous example, for individuals who were awaiting their workers' compensation benefits, or if they just had to take some unpaid sick time, or just care for a sick child or family member, those crises could result in them losing their housing, but through the support of the Greater Victoria Rent Bank, they've been able to maintain that stability. All right, to move on to some testimonials, I'm just going to read these out. One individual said, "You went above and beyond to help me and save me from having to live on the street. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." Another said, "I hope something wonderful happens to the rent bank like you happened to me." Now, as you can hear from these testimonials, we have a lot of themes of relief and dignity in the feedback that we receive, and we're really hearing that this program is helping to support people through some really transitional times. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time, and I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much. Great presentation, Miranda. I'll open it to council for questions. Seeing none, I have a quick question. I mean, it's obvious that comment here first. Obvious that we're taking our fair share of usage of the rent bank. I don't know if that's something to be proud of, but one of the items, one of the pieces of data you threw up in the beginning was that 33 applicants from Colwood in 2024. So is that trending up? Do you keep stats year to year, year over year, or so? Are we up, or are we about the same number of applicants?
It is trending up. Across all municipalities, Colwood is within the same range. It seems like it's increasing roughly the same across the entire Greater Victoria area, possibly due to the increasing affordability squeeze, but also possibly due to just increasing awareness of our programs. And in regards to your comment as well about whether it's good or not that Colwood is receiving their fair share, people are going to be going through these crises no matter what. So I'm glad that we're able to help out those people and kind of resolve the crises as they come up.
That's a great attitude. Thank you very much. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there is an ability to try to get more municipalities on board, or is everyone participating?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. We are making our rounds through the municipalities right now. And trying to get as many as we can on board, just with similar presentations. Really explaining the benefits that we're giving to the communities, as well as the impact that we're having on individual community members. And we're really hoping that we can add some more municipalities to our list currently.
Yeah, it just seems like it is a good program. And I would just note that when I read the application on the agenda, or the report on the agenda at first, I thought that we had a relatively small number of participants. But you've corrected that for me with your presentation tonight. So thank you very much for that. I guess it's just the grant versus the loans it was the difference there. So I do think that it's a program that could help families, and the West Shore communities have always been quite family oriented. So I'm very pleased to see it being used.
Thank you for your kind words, Counselor. And I agree. We do see a large proportion of the applicants from Colwood coming from homes with families and with children. And we're really glad that we can be able to support that demographic.
Thank you.
Excellent work, Miranda. Keep her going. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you all for your time and for your patience through the technical difficulties.
Okay, we shall move on to the next item in new business, which is the 2026 budget approach. If you can introduce the speaker, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Kobayashi, members of council. This is the 2026 budget approach. The recommended motion for council's consideration is that council endorse the 2026 budget approach, including the timeline for both 2026 service review and budget deliberations. And our Director of Finance, Ms. McLennan, is here to provide you with any additional information that you might be seeking.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So this report, as Mr. Johnson has indicated, is sort of our annual introduction to the budget cycle. We like to highlight what you can expect and what the process timeline is going to look like. Most of these principles are consistent from year to year. We talk about how we might fund certain initiatives. We have certain policies and practices that we follow at the city. In addition, just to remind council that we do have a 5-year plan that we establish every year. And often the focus, like we do have tax rates that are approved as we move through those years, but always this focus shifts a little bit more to the current year as we get to the current year. And so in the 5-year plan that is in place today, the 25 to 29 plan, there was a 7.49% increase approved for 2026. We will be looking closely, staff will be paying a lot of attention to what those line items look like. And if council remembers from last year's service review, which we will be starting again in October this year, finance was introducing new budget software this year. So as a result of that exercise, we are running a parallel this year, and we hope to be able to provide you with a lot of good content around what's driving the increase, what is forced growth, what is one-time expenditures, what are increases in service. So as we work through the service reviews, which the timeline is before you to start in October, actually, we will bring forward, council will get a sense of what has happened in that service area in the year, whether you want to maintain, increase, or decrease service based on what you see and hear. And there is some separation between those service reviews and when we get into budget deliberations later in December, and that's intentional. But we will be very transparent with council on what is driving all the aspects of that increase so that you can then evaluate and make recommendations from that point forward. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to highlight unless council has questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to council for questions. Council Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll have to bear with me. I dug into this fairly significantly. I think budgeting has been a concern of mine for a number of years. That's not a a shot at anyone. It's just that my understanding was that we were going to change the methodology a little bit this year. So, I'd like to first address the proposed approach and what I view as some flaws with it. And address some points that with the current approach makes it harder to reduce costs or tighten council's control over city spending. Point one is this default to maintaining existing levels, which has been the model that we've deployed, is equivalent to implicit incremental budgeting, or in layperson's terms, last year's budget is the base and it's rolled forward. And this tends to perpetuate inefficient or obsolete programs and encourages budget creep. It's relatively simple, but it can promote unnecessary spending and discourage reassessment. And I think the implication here is that opportunities for savings are missed unless council proactively flags each service for review. We go through this service review period, but it's lengthy, it's time consuming. We lack the background on a lot of things. So it's inefficient and we're unlikely to catch everything. So there are some challenges there. I think there's insufficient rigor or incentives around service prioritization. It kind of speaks for itself. It's just, certain staff and departments have little incentive to reallocate or reduce low value services. That's just the reality under this system. Priority or program budgeting structures are better suited to match spending with council and aligned with council and community priorities. It's very common, and we know it's common across a lot of municipalities, but it is also a common fiscal weakness in that the use of one-time growth or NCT, funding for ongoing operations is challenging. There are some ramifications to continuing that model as heavy as we are. I also have concerns with the carryover or continuation language in our budgeting model. Kind of weakens council control. The carry forward approach is common again across municipal governance, but without thresholds or limits. It reduces the fiscal discipline. We hear a conversation already about, well, it's approved for 7.49 next year, that kind of thing. And that concerns me. It leads to weak performance measurement and business case requirements. So missing KPIs. There's no targeted process for high cost or low value areas. This universal start with last year approach treats all programs the same rather than concentrating effort where it matters the most. There's case studies out there where cities are using a zero-based budgeting or ZBB approach, where you can really dig into some of those higher cost items. And that segues into zero-based budgeting or ZBB, as I mentioned. There are advantages in that it, forces a review of every program and its alignment with strategic priorities, reduces the automatic increase phenomenon that we see here. It can identify redundant or low value spending and reallocate funds to higher impact programs, so more bang for our buck. But ZBB also has a lot of challenges. It's high staff time, high cost, probably not feasible exclusively for a city the size of Colwood. So that's why I'd like to see us look at a more pragmatic hybrid, a model that would give council stronger control and save taxpayers money. So adopting a priority-based budget network as our core process, where we would use targeted zero-based budgeting reviews for the highest cost and most uncertain areas, things like new staff positions, programs of year-over-year growth, top 20% of expenditure categories by dollar amount, and any programs that score low on those PBB metrics, and require business case to show options to maintain, reduce, outsource, eliminate, quantify the outcome and costs. Do a lot of the things that we see in the private sector, for example. Maybe look at considering, and it's a bit outside the box, but strengthen rules on one-time versus recurring revenue. Using NCT, and maybe setting percentage thresholds on that is something we should consider, because as the economy shifts, there's a lot of risk there if things don't continue to grow the way we projected them to. It potentially introduce stricter carryover controls and thresholds on that. That would restore council's budget authority essentially and prevent this sort of slow drip program expansion, while we're working on planning. And something that certainly we've made strides on, but require performance metrics and publish them. So attach KPIs to each service, cost per user, contract service levels, response times. Many of these things, Mr. Mayor, you spoke of when you're talking about a dashboard. Really making sure that we've got this shorter performance pack so that during budget deliberations, we can show cost versus outcome on each program. Those objective metrics make these trade-offs defensible and allow council to see where reductions are reasonable. And it emphasized results measurement. And lastly, sort of mandate, business cases for all new positions or program expansions. We need to watch that incremental headcount growth and make sure that there's clear accountability on it. There's a few other pieces here, but in the interest of pace, I will move on. Just to summarize, basically, my view is that our budget approach is written leans towards an incremental status quo budgeting default that risks preserving low value spending, exposes the city to structural risk by using growth revenue for recurring costs, and of concern to me, weakens council control through automatic carryovers. But rather than a full citywide zero-based budgeting approach, which is one of the things we had discussed, I'd really strongly recommend that we look at a priority-based budgeting framework. I think at the end of the day, I want to see this council and future councils have a stronger practical, set of levers to control spending by the city and protect taxpayers. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. I'll comment on that too on my turn. I agree with everything you said. And so I shall move on with Councillor Jordison and then Councillor Day.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, from my view on this, I think that I think we need to look around at everybody else, and it's a tough time right now, and I think that we need to continue to maintain our services for the city, but I think council needs to strategically provide the benchmark to the city and say that the limit to any tax increase will be a maximum of 2 or 3% this year, and that's it, and go away and try and find the savings and come back and present it to us. I don't understand how we can be, inflation's at what, 1.7, 1.8 or something, and we're going to be pushing forward a budget or a tax increase that's over 7%. It doesn't jive and it doesn't sit well with me. And I think, part of the problem with the service review that I have issue with is that it's so high level that it's really hard to understand the, what's fixed and what's variable, what has to happen, what doesn't. Like the information is just not there. It's too high level. And the other thing too, I think going into this service review, I think council has to, make a decision like, is there going to be a wage freeze? Is there going to be management staff just increase in COLA and nothing more, and a hiring freeze for staff? We can't keep, everybody else is doing it right now too, like government, we're all broke. So we need to hold the line a bit, and I think we need to take a really good look at it this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Day, please.
Thank you. Along the same lines, I am concerned. Over the years, I've done line-by-line budget reviews. I've done service reviews over the years. And what I've found with the service reviews is that we talk a lot, but it doesn't necessarily add a great deal to my understanding of what we're actually able to cut back on, or where the initiatives that council wants to see are actually driving that budget. So I would like to see, when we come to service review, some explanation around what would we need to do in each area of service to reflect a 2% budget, so that we could, make those choices in an informed way to decide, we think it's worth doing this or it's worth doing that, to put it back in, and it's more defensible. For example, we've been working for years to try to reduce our dependence on taxes to fund sewers, so that taxpayers who don't have access to sewers aren't paying so much for it. Previously, it was at 33%, and now it's at 50% again. So I think that the small details matter, and they matter to how we build the budget going forward. We can't give good direction if there is no presentation on how to reduce the costs. And they are going up every year, and often for very good reasons, but at a time where inflation is at least down a bit from some very scary levels it was at post-COVID, to now around 2%. I would like to see us have our service reviews come forward with what it would look like to have a 2% lift budget versus the budget that's proposed at 7.49%. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Day. Councillor Olson, before I speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a quick question. I share a lot of the concerns that my colleagues here have at the table, but one of the questions that I have for staff and perhaps for our CAO is that it was my understanding that we were going to be approaching service review differently this year. And looking at it in front of me, it appears that we're following the same format as we have every other year. So I was hoping that somebody could explain to me how we're doing things differently this year, because that was my impression. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair, to be direct, staff have not received direction otherwise. So the approach that we are bringing forward is consistent with the approach that this council has seen inside of the last few years.
Thank you. Well, there's going to be new direction. Go, please, Jason, please.
Thank you. This is brought forward for council to say this is the process. If it's not meeting your expectation, we can certainly realign that. That's why we brought this report forward, to make sure that we're meeting the direction that you're providing. At the end of the day, council's making the decision on the tax increase, what that looks like, what programs you wish to support. One of the things that we've talked about is putting together KPIs, and we'll start working towards that. We're not there yet to have all of those metrics and those pieces in place, because we haven't filled those positions in order to be able to do that. So that's one of the items that we're looking to provide. But we want to make this sure that this process meets council's expectation, and that's why this report's here.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wilson again.
I just wanted to point out one more thing, and something that Councillor Jordison and I discussed briefly was one of the challenges that I think that I personally face, and I can't speak for everyone on the table, is that there's, you know, looking at this schedule, Tuesday, October 28th, you know, you're reviewing several different departments, and we're doing back-to-back meetings, and it's so much information to take in, you know, in one meeting, and then the next day to prepare, you know, maybe Councillor Ward's a wizard, or Mr. Kobayashi, but I know for me it is difficult. It's a lot of information to take in with back-to-back meetings. So just something that I wanted to point out. It might be a little bit too much, to be honest. And I don't know if there's a possibility of spacing them out, but it's just a lot in such a short time frame. So.
Councillor Jordison.
I would like to make a motion. I'm not sure if we're there yet. Do you like to go first? Okay, sure.
Okay. And Council Ward for the second time, or no, this is discussion actually.
No, I was going to let the chair know that I also intended to make a motion after you had spoken for the first time.
Great. I love this. Councillor Day.
Sorry, yes, I was also looking to make a motion.
Okay, I'm going to make my comments actually. Before all the motions, absolutely agree. I think there's a general sentiment here on council. I was very surprised, and I let it run its course. You know, I was very surprised with our methodology, because I was, as you know, I earlier this summer, I put out a kind of a nasty memo and for your review. I just let it sit and let you guys think about it and let it dwell in your minds. But I was looking for a totally different approach myself. And I knew it was too late to do zero-based budgeting. I just know we have to start that process a lot earlier than we did. I think I was trying to stir the pot back then, I guess, for different thinking on how we do budgeting. And I can tell you right now, coming from the private industry, your budget goes up as you raise your revenues, and it just doesn't. We don't sort of consider that in our considerations a lot of times. But I do actually believe in that there's another discussion, which I was not hoping to have it here, but I wanted to have another meeting before all these meetings actually. So we're talking more openly with staff about this and what the expectations are, what we think our targets are. And because there's no sense you guys going away and creating a budget and we're going, well, our expectation was, you say 7.4, ours was 2% municipally plus, whatever the incrementals are, from other projects. So if you start off that way, you know, I think it's a lot better instead of you go away and then you come back and we say, oh, geez, we hate that. The second thing I'm hoping to change in the whole budgeting process, I find the service reviews were great when we first started them because you got to know what all this, you know, how all the services work throughout the city. And I've learned a better way. We spent at being on the board of directors down at the CRD. Should I admit that? Yes. But there is one thing that they do well, I think, is the budgeting process. And we spend less time on talking about, you know, the service side of it. They publish it, and because for the most part, it doesn't change a lot, and you're just repeating yourself year after year after year. They actually publish it, and they sort of put that on like a consent agenda. Like, you know, we're all happy with that, yes. And we spend more time talking about the finances, you know. And I think just this is myself, my own personal experience. We spend so much time talking about the services and a little bit in the end about the finances, but sometimes we miss things because it's the last thing after, you know, each of the departments that does it. And you're sort of dying then, you know what I mean? So we don't spend enough time justifying the increases or whatever the savings that you should be having. So that's a methodology I'd like to see changed, you know, and it's this, as Council Ward has pointed out, you know, we can do a modified ZBB, I think, something that can be done in a timely fashion. And, you know, if it starts with, I'm so used to having these high numbers, you know, you know, in commercial world, your sales team would come in and sort of say, here's the revenue we're expecting. And, you know, they always lie to you anyways, and you discount it a lot. And then you try to match, you know, your expenses to your revenue. Once you find out what that revenue looks like, that's where we start. That's our starting point. And then we go, okay, so, you know, this is what our expenses are going to be. So it's just a little bit different here. So I you know, I think that's where we should start. We should know, we should have a target. And what is that target? Like, get you to work to something right now so that, you know, I know the staff have some really good ideas on how we can make savings there. I've seen it amongst you. I've heard you guys talking about them, and I go, oh, why don't we implement something? Like, I just find it very odd. But even if it is longer term savings or whatever, but we never have those discussions, unfortunately. So I agree with the general sentiment around here. You can see everybody's looking at, we've got to do better. We really have to do better. I don't like how what the province is doing right now. They're, you know, I don't want to criticize the premier, but, you know, this government has added 50% to our debt load in the last couple of years alone. And then what they're doing is they're downloading a lot of costs to us. And I don't like it. And for the first time this year, we actually said, this is their fault. We've never done that before, but we are going out there and doing that now. So I'd like the methodology to be changed slightly, because this does read exactly how we do business right now. And I think that has to be shaken up a little bit. Okay, Kathy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lots of feedback. Thank you very much. There were some statements I just want to speak to a little bit because, like you're saying, you don't have a lot of insight into all the line item detail. We do scrutinize the budgets, even though it appears to be just a last year over this year. And we do ask all team members to look at what is actually building up that budget. And we look at the past 5 years to see that they are actually requiring that budget. And if council will remember from when we presented the financial statements for 2024, service areas actually came in really lean to what was budgeted. There was no excess. That doesn't mean, though, to Councillor Ward's point and some other people, that we wouldn't just continue that growth. But what I'm trying to articulate is that we do scrutinize and we do reach out to those teams to justify those budgets. And they're justifying it on their own too, and they're doing their own independent review. The rigor around service delivery, it's a little bit unfortunate that council isn't feeling the control that we're hoping service delivery offers. And so we're just maybe missing some key points in how we're executing on service delivery to get you guys comfortable with how that looks if we decide to continue with service delivery, in terms of how the metrics represent the service area, et cetera. And we could, I was hoping like through this comments I made about showing exactly what's driving increases, where increases are being driven to show what's comprising it, that would give council more control over yay or nay, or what do we agree with that approach. The carryover comment in the budget approach is always there just so that we don't have to stop business when January 1 comes around and we don't have a financial plan in place. So really that statement is not to say this is the budget that's moving status quo forward and council won't have any input, because we know there's a new budget coming. We know we have to have it in place before the tax bylaw before May 15. So we know it's really so that we can continue business. That's what that statement is about. It's just to remind council, because that bylaw is approved and in place. And then the KPIs, yes, we are also looking forward to implementing KPIs. We've been putting work into that, and there's a statistical model, actually, a module in our new software that is going to deliver on that. Sadly, I don't think we'll see the full benefits of that until the 27 budget, but we are working towards that to get that information to council as soon as we can. We are facing pressures from the collective agreements, but we will be careful again to articulate what that is looking like when we present those numbers. And we would also, like, if that's council's direction to work towards a flat rate increase, we will certainly do that, and then just articulate what the different pressures are by each service area on those rates. We do look at revenues also, though. We're not working in a little bubble here. The whole package, we're looking at everything that's coming in the current year, and we're also looking at actually other revenue sources, increasing revenues, and reviewing the fees and charges bylaw to support new revenues in 2026.
Thank you, Kathy, and don't take this as a criticism, please. I want to make sure you understand that every person around this table respects our finance department. It's not a you problem by any means. So I just want to make sure you understand that. And I actually had Kathy produce something that was for the city, actually. And I haven't shared it amongst all the council here, but she did a quick analysis just looking at municipal taxes and the increases over the past 3 years for all 13 municipalities. And I can tell you we're the second lowest on the municipal side, right? The second lowest. There's only one municipality that has lower taxes than us over the last 3 years, taking a compound average. And that's Highlands, but they're so small that doesn't count. So we're not doing bad. So we don't brag about. So that I did that on purpose, actually, because we don't do enough of that chest beating, actually. And you've got to help me with that messaging too, or help council with that messaging, because that is very important. And in fact, I'm happy if you share that information with the rest of council, but I did, there was a purpose behind that madness of mine. I felt better because I was talking with people about this, because I had someone challenge me on this, and I was able to speak because I had facts in front of me. So that's what was important. So don't take this as we're beating up on you. You hear us right now. Some things aren't making sense to us. I can't answer a lot of questions right now. Like, I know factually, we've managed to build up our planning and our development services department, right? And we built it up based on number of DPs, number of BPs being produced, right? I mean, it was crazy last year. I think it was our biggest year. But then this year, we're half. So you scratch your head a little bit. You go, okay, we gave you all those extra people. What happens now? Like, what's the work? So some things that we talk about right now, there's things that are just adding up to us right now. And so they're the little things. They're the little things that sort of add up. And there's other little examples that I can repeat to you. That's not a you finance problem. But it's just that sometimes we feel no one's watching this and monitoring this, right? That's the feeling we have. So I can only tell you about a feeling, and we could be completely wrong, but to me, that's something that makes sense to me. Jason, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. This is a tough budget year, and it will be. We're vastly aware of what our provincial partners are doing, what our school district partners are doing, and we're looking at this budget to find all the different savings we can find. But what I've heard from council is we've missed the mark. And what you would like us to do is provide you a revised approach, which I'm going to recommend that we do, rather than coming back with a bunch of motions for council. We can come back and say, here's our revised plan and how we would plan to bring that back based on what the comments were here around the table today. So that would be my recommendation to you. We've heard what council's had to say. You want to see some amendments to the process, which we will put together. We will space it out more from what I've also heard. And to start with that overall perspective and picture. I think it's important when we're looking at departments. That's why we do service reviews, is so that you can get into the details, so that you can see our planning staff aren't just related to development applications. It's also when we've had high growth over the last few years, we really haven't turned our mind to being more proactive with policy, which I would suggest we're behind on, right? So we've got our staff that are working behind the scenes on policy and perspectives, and you'll be seeing those reports coming forward to council, which will show you and help alleviate that and bring that forward. But what I'd recommend is that council defer this matter back to staff to come back with a revised approach that meets council's expectations from what we've heard around the table here. We're also happy to hear direction that council wants to give us in bringing that report back, if council would find that helpful as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. So, like I said, it's a tough. These are tough discussions that we're having right now, and I didn't think we were going to go here tonight with this discussion with targets and all that. Like I said, but it's why not? Because if the approach is it's obvious that no one's really happy with the approach with the methodology. We want to slightly change it, but I'd like your idea of having you come back with, you've heard of what we've said right now, and coming back next meeting. Can we have this ready for them? You think?
I think next meeting would be tough, given that the agenda deadline is Wednesday. Okay, it would be the meeting afterwards. And, you know, this is a tough budget year. We understand that, and we've heard what council's had to say. And we've also heard in terms of timing and how all that fits together. And I think we can bring that back to council.
Okay, thank you. And this year, I may take the foot off the pedal a little bit. I've been always the proponent of let's get the bloody budget done before we start spending it. We took a lot of pride in that last year. Probably the only municipality that actually had our budget done before we started spending. A lot of the municipalities wait till the May 15th deadline. I think it's May 15th, isn't it? May 15th. And then the budgets are done, but they're already spending 5 months into the year. It's kind of a weird way of doing business. And we took a lot of pride last year in that our budgeting was done before the 31st of December. But I'm willing this year, and mainly I'm willing to take the foot off the pedal on that one a little bit, is because we do have the union contracts that we have to finalize. So it's going to be pretty hard to finalize a budget until all those numbers are in anyways. So I think there's some leniency on this. I know that I apply a lot of pressure to get that thing done, but you know, if we expand it for another couple of weeks or 3 weeks into January, so what? It's not the ideal what we want, but it may be a better situation, and allow a little more time, you know, for people to digest numbers. So maybe that's the compromise, and that's if you can come back in your suggestion on that. So yeah, I'm open to it anyways myself. So at this point in time, everyone wants to make a motion. Who started it? So I think it was you. Okay. Councilor Jordan, we'll start with you then. Oops, sorry. Oops. Okay.
Thank you. So thank you, Jason. I I understand what you're saying, but I really think that I think this time the council needs to actually give the direction. And I don't want to create a bunch of work, but I feel like that, you know, that we need to direct that a budget needs to, or a service review needs to be prepared and presented of the draft budget with consideration of maintaining core services and limiting any tax increase to a maximum of 2% to see what it looks like. It's a review. It's a way to have that discussion, I think, to dig deeper into it. You know, clearly distinguishing between fixed and variable costs. And I really think that we need to, like, I don't know if we can, but I think that there needs to be a wage freeze for management staff, except for the cost of living at this time, and establish an immediate hiring freeze. I don't think that this is abnormal to what any other municipal government or provincial government is doing at this time. It's everywhere. So the other thing that I just wanted to mention was and I think you've heard what we've said, but the service review, I think we need a week for each service review of the content, how you have it, the buckets that you have here. And, you know, I understand, I hear, oh, we don't have time for that. Well, we do our budget, we do the service review a lot earlier than a lot of municipalities, a lot of places, and I think we need to take the time. So, and then I feel like we don't see the budget again until like January or that sort of thing, and there's just such a big lull in between. Although I realize that staff are putting it together and doing the work. So I just want to say that I'm happy to hear what Councillor Ward has for a motion, but I think we need to direct that there needs to be a specific percentage that we work towards. Thank you.
That's the motion. You're making a motion right now on what you just did.
Do you want me? Yeah, well, I wanted to hear what Councillor Ward has to say.
Okay, so you're not making.
So I was just
okay.
talking about it.
Councillor,
Just let him, yeah.
Councillor Ward, please. Oops.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jordison, for that. I certainly understand the sentiment. I think I'm disinclined to put a number on it only because I think I would like to give the staff the benefit of the doubt to take what we've provided here and as the CAO said, come back with something. But I would like to put a framework on it. So what I would propose as a motion is a scaled down version of what I had sent the corporate officer. It was fairly wordy, so I emailed it to her. But basically what I'd be just looking at is for the city to take away and utilize a modified or scaled down priority based budgeting framework to come back to us and potentially look to implement targeted zero-based budget reviews on the top expenditures. Now, I digress for a moment, but if I was looking at putting this in place for a 5-year financial plan, I would say I want the top 20% of operating expenditures by total cost. But I think because of the timeline we're looking at, and in fairness to staff capacity, I would say maybe for the top 3 operating expenditures. And I'm open to be flexible here. I would say through the chair, I would look for the CAO's thoughts on this. But I would like to include, proposed new or expanded programs or staff positions as part of that. And any programs with a significant double-digit year-over-year cost growth. And ultimately as part of that to request staff to provide a summary of potential efficiency savings or service reallocations that they've identified through that process, understanding the spirit of what council's trying to say. So I can try to compress that into a motion, but I did want to make sure that, or get the feedback from the CAO in terms of, what's needed to put that on paper. Because I do think, as Councillor Jordison said, council should provide the direction. We should put something down, even if it's fairly loose framework, give the city the ability to be flexible and work on what we're asking to be done, but not make it overly onerous that we take up too much capacity or confine them to sort of silos on this.
Jason.
Thank you, your worship, members of council. I need some time with the team, to be quite frank, to look at what our framework looks like, what that looks like in terms of timing and how we can put that together. What I don't like doing is providing you an overall budget without any sort of framework or feedback that's come in. And this often happens in municipalities where they'll come forward with a 10 or 11% increase and go, well, here you go. And then council says, well, this didn't meet our expectations. Our intention here was to bring the overall work plan so you can see how we were proposing to bring it forward. What I've seen here is some disconnect, right? And that disconnect, what I would advise council is allow us to put together that framework and come back to you with that. And then I think we can start looking at what those motions look like and what that looks like in terms of, framework. Because I think it's really important that I have the opportunity with the team to do a bit of a check-in, because this is information for us. We understand what council wants in terms of looking for efficiencies. I understand what council is looking for in terms of KPIs. Is our service level too high in one area? Our problem is our KPIs aren't well defined, and nor have we had conversations with council about the particular service level and what that overall cost is. And that's what the intention behind service review is to provide that level of detail. I think we can do that not by the next week, not by the next meeting, but by the following one for the last meeting in October. We'll bring you back that approach. The benefit of us coming to you now in October is we do have some time, but that is going to push up on getting our budget approval done early, just as we did last year. You received a copy of the budget in January, of which it was then adopted, but a lot of those service discussions are happening. What I've heard from council is you want a more in-depth review. You want more KPIs. You want more time to be able to review it, of which I believe we can all do and bring you a work plan that meets your expectation.
So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
how do we want to frame this motion then?
Mr. Mayor, I think what I would suggest, and if the CAO is inclined to agree, is just simply a simple motion that we direct staff to return on the proposed date, 2 meetings from tonight, with a amended framework that would replace the current proposal on the budget process, period.
Okay,
And then we can
that sounds.
take a look at that time.
So I just have one last question on this. Do you think it's worth us having a public workshop on this right now to discuss this even more with all the ideas? Everyone's got an idea here. So would it be worth it, or do you think you've heard enough here and you can move on from here?
I think I've heard enough here to bring you back a work plan that makes sense for what direction council's given us. To me, this behooves us to look at this as a committee of the whole meeting, right? Because we've got a lot of feedback here. Council, when it comes here, should be very decisive what we've got and have that conversation. So I think we can move that forward at the committee of the whole meeting in October to have that more fulsome discussion. And then council could get into the motions that you were talking about to set that sort of direction. Well, let's get that framework appropriately put together for council to meet your expectation for what you've said here tonight.
Thank you very much. Can I get a second there, please? Okay, Councilor Grove, a discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Councilor Day.
Sorry, apologies. It's hard being the online person. Just that we have 4 meetings planned for service review, and I would imagine that this is impacting the presentations at those. So I just wanted to flag that, which is why I had wanted to bring a motion forward, because I really feel that looking at those service reviews with in mind what would it take to achieve a 2 or 3% budget increase this year would allow us to have council in the driver's seat of what changes we want to see made. There may be some places where we're convinced when we see what that actually looks like that some things need to stay, and we may be convinced that things have to go. I just thought that since we have 4 meetings planned for service review, I know that the timing may be changing because of tonight's discussion, I would just like to see whatever choices are coming forward for the new process, that they be reflected at those meetings, because they seem to have been the driver of our previous process.
Thank you very much. Council Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say I certainly agree with Councillor Dave that we would want to understand what changes would be occurring, but I'm of the belief that under the framework, the loose motion that's there, that city staff would understand that expectation, just as if they were going to come back and propose, an additional cost area, that they would certainly identify anything of significance that would be removed and the ramifications of that. So maybe through the chair of the CIO, I'm understanding that is understood.
Completely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll move on to 9.3. I think because this may take a little while, I'll call the health break at this point in time. If we can get everybody back in 5 minutes at 8:55, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. We're gonna reopen the session, come out of recess, and we're gonna move on to item 9.3, which is the City of Colwood Sustainable Infrastructure Replacement Plan, 2024 draft. And Mr. Johnson, if I can get you to introduce who will be speaking on this, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is item 9.3, formerly item 7.3 from the consent agenda. This is the City of Colwood Sustainable Infrastructure Replacement Plan draft. Our Deputy CAO, Jen Hepting, is here to answer any questions that council may have, given that this did go to the committee meeting and it wasn't a unanimous recommendation.
Right. Thank you very much. I guess I'll start it off here. Jen, I did watch the Infrastructure and Transportation Committee meeting. It was actually a very good discussion that happened on it. I thought it was very, very good. And I think even the chair was sitting on the fence. But I just want to make a few comments here. What I found, the biggest issue that I found myself with this, it's very, very well done. I can tell you there's nothing wrong with it, but I guess where I was a bit mixed up and you know, I was getting caught up in numbers and it's a guideline and you're using them as examples. I know that now, but I was sort of getting stuck up on those numbers. And I think what's missing in the plan, really missing, is defining what sustainable infrastructure is and isn't. I think it's so important because it's missed in that document. And I've read it up the second time now, and I just went, we need to describe what you really mean there. And more than that, it's also I was talking to you earlier, questioning on this earlier, and that was just on if it means, you know, work that we do along the way, we do patch up work here, patch up there, you know, is that considered part of that? And so I always look at that as O&M, operations and maintenance, rather than, you know, my definition when you first introduced, or when it was first introduced by actually the contractor that put this together, it was always, and I went back, I did find my notes on this, and in fact, it was based on replacement of infrastructure. It was new. It wasn't reused. We didn't use that term back then. I found it. So it was actually, that was the intent of it in actual fact. So this has gone beyond that scope now, I believe now. And so it's, and how much do we pay of that is another question. And there's nobody out there that's fully doing this right now. No one out there, you know, they're doing like we are, putting a few percent away every year. But that is the one thing that is missing in the plan. And that's why I would not approve it until we had that definition in there. I really want to understand what we're approving. So that's my comment. Open it up for anyone. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Day.
Thank you. Yes, it was definitely, I was trying to, as chair of that meeting, I was trying to give equal opportunity around the table and ensure that everyone felt that they could ask questions and weigh in regardless of how they felt about it. It was a long meeting, large committee, long meeting. But one of the things that worries me as I've given it more thought after the fact was that the benefits were calculated based on total buy-in. So that, you know, that you would be putting the money away and accruing those benefits, and the 100-year life cycle of the assets that were being contemplated, because we started looking at sewer line asset infrastructure, got mixed in with asset classes of different lengths of lifespan. So not only are you only going to accrue the benefits that accrue from however much you decide to invest in the plan and how soon you decide to invest, there's also risks associated with the multiple asset classes within that fund, potentially money that you save to replace a sewer asset of a sewer pipe that has a 100-year lifespan could actually have that funding diverted to something with a much lower lifespan, like maybe only 20 years, because vehicles were also included. There's also a lack of any rules around the use of the funds or whether or not we have dedicated reserve funds for each asset class. So I was left afterwards when I thought about it, and one of the members of the committee declined to get into those exact issues, saying, he didn't want to get too deeply into the methodology and the rationale, but he did not, in the end, support the plan. So I was left feeling that it could potentially be a real source of problems for the city years down the road when we think we're putting away for one thing and it's been used for something else. So that was a real concern for me. I do believe in being a saver. I've always been a saver rather than a borrower, but our entire community has been built on borrowing funds. So if we put ourselves in the position where we have to borrow funds at the same time as we're saving for future expenditures, I think that we're not really in a position to take full advantage of the very good benefits that would come from a purely theoretical way of doing business. But we're not a theoretical place, and we have real everyday problems, and we can't really just switch over from a borrowing mindset for long-term asset, intergenerational wealth transfers occur mostly through borrowing. And this was looking at trying to find a way to support those longer term items, but now we have more classes in the asset barrel than I think this fund can reasonably handle. So I won't be supporting it in its current form.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in reviewing this, I obviously don't have the benefit of being on the committee, and frankly, I'll admit I didn't watch the meetings, but I dug into it and took the view or the lens of just a taxpayer, because it is so long term that could very well be a year from now. That's what I am. It's just a taxpayer in Colwood. So there's some obvious things. I've got a number of points. Obviously the long term funding gap is pretty significant. That's glaringly obvious. The implications of that are pretty serious. It does have recommended immediate tax and fee increases. And that's something that we need to be cognizant of. Just coming off that last discussion, the compounded increases there could be 20-25% on combined bills within a few years. And that's not insignificant. The reliance on investment returns doesn't concern me as much. But hey, if returns are lower, the funding gap can grow, and that create some challenges there as well. More importantly, there's no adjustment that I could find in there for inflation in the cost forecast. So this 100-year model is using 2024 dollars with no inflation adjustment. And real construction inflation is going up 3% annually. So future costs could be a lot higher. I mean, we're going from 876 million to 5.7 billion, but that doesn't appear in there, but it's a real concern. Growth and climate risks aren't accounted for, so there's unfunded liabilities there. Some possible overestimation of replacement lifespans. Again, minimal. I think it's modeled at the midpoint, so I think that's fair. I think I'll skip through a few of these, but I think the bigger one here too is the limited discussion of cost control. So we talk about raising revenues, but there really isn't any specific cost reduction strategies or service prioritization framework there. So we could end up funding inefficiencies rather than, true sustainability. So, we're looking at proposing automatic annual forced growth tax increases indexed to construction cost inflation, but without annual voter oversight. So, really at the end of the day, taxpayers are looking at escalating costs that are embedded in city policy without a whole lot of debate. And, I don't have the answers. There's a lot there. There's money that's required, and this feeds it back into the budget conversation, but it's difficult to get behind it. That's my view at this point. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone else? Questions? Okay, the motion. Motion.
Your worship. The motion is that the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee recommend that council endorse the 100-year sustainable infrastructure replacement plan for financial planning purposes. That was the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to make that motion so we can get into the discussion then? Okay. Councilor Grove, a seconder. Okay. Perfect. Councilor Wilson. So again, like I said, my biggest bee in my bonnet right now. I like to know what we're talking about when it comes that definition of sustainable infrastructure. So before I even would consider voting yay on this, I do want that definition because it's really important for my own understanding. So I'd like that modified, in fact. So that's my biggest point that I want to make, because the rest of it is a guideline, and I do understand that. Without getting into numbers, it is a guideline. When you take that mindset and you look at it, you go, okay, this is okay. But just to have that definition would be good. Go ahead.
If I may speak to that point, it's certainly, I completely agree, the introduction, and not to lose sight, the city has a sustainable infrastructure replacement plan. Council directed administration to update the plan 5 years in. That is the update that we've returned within 2024. And here we are seeing some of the subsequent feedback be considered. And I completely agree. There's a glossary of terms on page 55 of this updated plan. We can absolutely expand that glossary. And should council provide direction tonight, I would encourage council to add that so that we can expand that glossary. And there's an overview with respect to what the intention of the sustainability is. And there's absolutely an opportunity to expand that so that it's clear to the user of this plan what we mean when we are referencing sustainable infrastructure replacement. So I hear you, and should council provide direction, that will ensure that's incorporated.
My motion to modify it actually before I would approve it. Okay. Can I get a seconder on my motion? Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Wilson. Discussion on my change. Seeing none, I'll call the question on.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry about that, Councilor Day. Go ahead.
Thank you. So your motion is to amend to include a definition of sustainable infrastructure?
I'd like it clearly delineate what is in that and what isn't in that.
Okay. I will yield the floor, but when that's done, I have another addition to the motion.
Okay, so I'll just call the question on the on the amendment discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those for, and any opposed? Okay, seeing none. Okay, that should have just called it easier question. And I'll go back to you, Councilor Day.
Thank you. I just want to make it very clear that it is for planning purposes only. This document is not directing inclusion of anything in the budget, that this is simply something that we refer to when making our budget decisions. So I'm sorry, I sort of missed whether for planning, I believe for planning purposes is in the motion, but I wanted to add the word only.
Certainly, and to comment on that, yes, I mean, this is a policy document. It's intended to provide financial guidance, and there are a number of
both tactics and policy considerations that you heard from our CFO earlier tonight. When we mention policies that are considered in, the annual budget approach, this is one of those documents that lends policy consideration. And of course, council can specifically consider the financial implications with the annual budget considerations. And so when it comes to whether or not we are going to raise taxes for purposes of sustaining our infrastructure, or whether or not we are going to raise our user fees, that is a specific annual consideration of council, and it's not directly inferred with the endorsement of this plan. Thank you.
So, Councillor Day, so you want us to add the only onto the original motion?
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the original motion as amended. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We shall move on. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we shall move on to item new business, or no, pardon me, bylaws 10.1. Mr. Johnson, you want to introduce the speaker on this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is bylaw 1714, the North Latoria Area Plan, for Council's consideration of first and second reading. The recommendation for Council to consider is that Council consider endorsing the North Latoria Area Plan dated August 2025, and that the official community plan bylaw number 1700-2018, amending bylaw number 1714, North Latoria Area Plan, be given first reading, and that Council considers official community plan bylaw number 1700-2018, amendment bylaw number 1714 in conjunction with the city's 2025 to 2029 financial plan on municipal waste management plans, and that the official community plan bylaw 1700-2018, amendment bylaw 1714 to be given a second reading, and that staff be directed to complete the public consultation program outlined in the communications section of the report with section 475 of the Local Government Act. There is a presentation should you wish to receive it, and staff are here. Our planner, Desiree Gibbons, and Mari Osmorth, our manager of planning.
Does council wish to have the briefing again, or? Oh, Councillor Day?
I don't need the presentation, thank you. I would like to have updated sewer flow information because I believe we should have just received the latest sewer numbers.
You have the latest sewer numbers, someone? Oh. Okay. What I'll do, let's I'm just gonna get a mover and seconder so we can get in discussion onto this then. Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson, Councillor Grove seconds it.
Your Worship, there were members of the public that wished to speak to this item earlier.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am very, very sorry. The public, I shall open it up. Now, I get confused when we move this public participation to, and I had a note right here.
Thank
So
you,
go
Your
ahead.
Worship. No, we appreciate the opportunity. My name is Rachel Sansom of the Highlands, but I'm here representing several landowners in the North Latoria corridor. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank council and staff and the public for all their hard work to get us here today. There's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of engagement. John had to be a planner for a year, and Desiree, of course, has kept us up to date and worked really hard, and Mari's overseen everything. Other members of staff attended all those engagement sessions and were so thorough and so good. And we just really appreciate the effort that went in. And of course, the multiple stakeholder meetings that it had to have with us to listen to all of our concerns and ideas. So just wanted to thank everybody for all that work. And we're really looking forward to a public hearing and hopefully building something that the community and you all can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. And there was a second speaker, I believe that. Please.
Hi, good evening, Your Worship, council, staff from Colwood. I also want to repeat basically what one of my colleagues just said. The staff were very supportive and open, but I use the word sincere. So they were very genuine throughout the process. I think we've come a long ways over 5 years. Most of us have been involved in those lands for 5 years, trying to get them to a rezone process. So we are excited to offer our full attention over the public hearing and any information or further engagement that mayor and council and staff so desire, so that we can really start the next real true step, which is the true detail architectural planning, get submissions for building permits, and finally get shovels into the ground. So that's what our goal and attempt is. We're looking to make a fulsome community, and we really do see North Latoria as a community. And I would just make comment that 9 out of the 10 PID properties are represented in the 4 of us that are here tonight. So I just want to make sure that one final comment, there was a letter that was written as a group, and we'll actually submit that letter as part of the public engagement, but it's just a letter putting it in writing about our feeling around how we felt we were received with the city, which was excellent. And we just want to make sure that that gets put on record for the staff to recognize that they're doing the right things. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. And I don't think there's anyone else that wants to speak on this item. I just had the 2. Seeing none, I will close public participation on this item and take it over to Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll do my best to be succinct. I know it's a stretch. I did have a couple concerns, echoing what Councillor Day had said around the sewer component of the plan. There is a disconnect in there between the land use report and again, everything's connected tonight, the sustainable infrastructure replacement plan. So you've got one which basically says sewer capacity for OCP build out is accounted for, which is the land use report, and then the SERP, to use its acronym, which says modeling excludes growth. So I'm certainly not going to let that stand in the way of moving forward here, but I think council needs an explicit, consistent statement of which models include which growth scenarios. I think we need to have a pretty clear understanding of what we're talking about there. Beyond that, my only other concern with this is really probably for a later date, but the community doesn't view it that way. You often hear that refrain, like, why don't we build the roads and then build the developments? And you know, we know it doesn't necessarily work that way, but I think Latoria is a concern of mine. I've been an outspoken opponent of the transportation master plan, particularly the notion of 4-laning or effectively 5-laning Latoria. I think it's wholly unnecessary. It's not supported by data. And my concern is that the densification that we're seeing here will be used as justification to suggest that we need that, when in fact, there's nothing to suggest that that would really have any kind of effective change there. I remain convinced that 3 lanes on Latoria is what's best served for our community. Otherwise, we create sort of induced demand where folks that are coming from South Langford, I guess we'll call it, that should take VMP would see this great 4-lane superhighway running past this nice new development, carry on right down through the most dense neighborhood of Colwood, and then continue along with Chosen, because that's their direction of travel. That's the way commuters go. So that's a discussion for another day. But I do not want to see this leveraged as some sort of justification for a plan that isn't built on data. So with that being said, I would laud the property owners that have come together and recognized this council's ask, I think, to view this as sort of a master plan development, even though they're all individual parcel owners. I think they've come to the table as equal partners. I appreciate that. I think what they're proposing is reasonable, and they have my support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great comments, Councillor Ward. Councillor Jordison, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had some questions, and maybe it's to staff. I just need to be reminded, is there still landowner holdout within this group? Because the presentation looks like the whole land is owned by this group, but I'm not sure.
Thank you, Councillor Jordison, and through the chair. Yes, there are 2 holdouts, I believe, out of the 13 properties. So 11 out of the 13 are represented. 2 of them have not come forward, but we may see that change in the future. It just, we have applications currently for 11 out of the 13 properties.
So are we essentially, so it looks like 560, I don't know. Are we essentially pushing the riparian and all this tree canopy onto these, or suggesting that they should be on these properties that are on the holdouts? And like how, I mean, I guess it's their problem, but how are they going to ever develop one day, like where all that stuff seems to be going to those properties that are the holdouts?
That's all right.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair. So the all of the properties do share Latoria Creek, and some of the existing tree canopy that isn't all on 2 properties. There are significant tree canopy on 560 Latoria. Staff do recognize that, but that property owner has the same right as any developer to come forward with an application in the future, and council can consider it against the North Latoria area plan. If they wish, the policies will guide that application as well, and it might require some adjustments or some, I guess, variations to the area plan. But okay, yes, so all of the properties do share some of that riparian area though through Latoria Creek.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just bear with me. I just had a couple more questions. The seniors housing, somewhere in this document, it's quite lengthy, all these, I saw something about for-profit seniors housing and not having amenity charges. Like I'm all for not paying amenity charges when it's a non-profit or that sort of thing, but when it's for-profit, I don't think that's on. I don't know if this is a meeting to discuss that, but I did notice that in there. The other big question I have is, like, should council be passing an area plan that changes the OCP? Like, it's great that we have a housing policy, but why is this just in this area plan and not a citywide housing policy?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So the reason why we developed this area plan for North Latoria specifically is because of the increased interest and development activity along that corridor. And because of the specific constraints of the corridor, like realigning the creek, and we didn't have any policy to ensure that the city can secure all of those things that we were looking for. So the local area plan was essentially the tool that we had to develop to ensure that we could secure those amenities that are identified in the plan. The amendment to the OCP is just a part of the process to adopt the local area plan and ensure that we do review rezoning applications against those policies.
Okay, and then my last question is, and I know we're.
She didn't answer your question.
Oh, sorry.
On the CACs though.
Yeah, yeah, the CACs that part. You're right.
So at this point, that's just a policy direction within the local area plan. But once applicants come forward at the rezoning stage, that is when council would have to essentially approve waiving CACs or not. So that's not happening at the consideration of the local area plan. It's just a policy direction at this time.
Thank you, Mari. The other last question I had was, I know we're past this design phase and everything, but I don't understand why we have a road coming out of Byzantin to go across when, if it's good enough for Resolution Way off VMP to have to turn right to go down around the roundabout, why wouldn't we be doing right in, right out with Byzantin and not forcing this road through? It would be easier for the developers. And it just seems like we've got Wishart on one side and we've got VMP on the other. Could we not build a roundabout at Wishart and just they go right, they go around the roundabout, just like others are being forced to do? I'm just confused about. It just seems weird that we would have a light there and a light at Wishart and that sort of thing.
Thank you for the thank you for the question, Councillor Dorderson. So staff have explored various options for road alignment, and the reason that we settled on the Byzantine Way extension was to protect the environmental features and to not go across the creek that runs north-south through 560 Latoria. We wanted to try to avoid any environmental impacts, and then also the lands at the rear of the property where the road could be located and extend and go from Wishart to Veterans Memorial Parkway are quite steep. So this solution, I think, allows us to address those concerns around grade and the environment. So it's the best case scenario. And
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Day.
Thank you. So it's quite unfortunate that the local area plan doesn't seem to consider the needs of the adjacent properties to the north, who will be greatly impacted by 6-story buildings, considering that most of the properties on the north side of the North Latoria area are 2-story homes. And there doesn't seem to be any increased setbacks or any consideration of the shadows that are going to be put on the existing properties. Can the planning staff answer why they have not considered the neighboring uses or setbacks?
thank you, Councillor Day, and through the chair. The setbacks will be considered by council as rezoning applications come forward. We are developing a North Latoria corridor zone, which will include setbacks to the rear property line. At that time, when council considers this zone, you can recommend increased rear setbacks or a stepping down or any other design features that you would like included in the North Latoria area, in the North Latoria corridor zone. It just hasn't been included in the area plan.
And will that also include consideration for tree retention?
Thank you. No, the tree retention measures or tree retention rates are included within the area plan. We're targeting 75% tree protection within the green spaces and 33% tree retention in the on-site outside of the green spaces, and this will be monitored through the implementation of the area plan. As applications come forward for development permits or tree management permits, we'll be ensuring that they are abiding to those tree retention targets.
And will those percentages be on each property or in the region as a whole of the North Latoria area?
The intention is it would be across the entire area as a whole. Unfortunately, unless all the applications come forward at the same time, we will have to assess it on a site-by-site basis as applications come forward.
Okay, thank you. And also, it seems that there doesn't seem to be any consideration of the costs for the additional sewer capacity that will be required. So when we reach our capacity and there are penalties, there's no provision for any additional contributions from these properties?
These developments at the time of building permit will be subject to the sewer DCCs.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I would just like to point out that given the heights and the considerations, I'm just requesting that you consider the shading for the neighbor homes. We have a lot of developments that are taking place in Colwood that have been very hard for the existing residents to adapt to, given that their homes are being greatly impacted, whether it's Souk Road, Jayden, Linlark, or Karen Roads, or whether you're elsewhere in Colwood. There are real impacts between the older neighborhoods and the newer neighborhoods. Is there a commitment to addressing those types of issues, or is it every person for themselves?
Certainly, staff can require sun and shade analysis prior to rezoning application, so that could come forward as each rezoning application is considered by council.
Thank you. And for the creek realignment, who will pay for that?
So the plan is to update the park improvements DCC as well as the park acquisition DCC to cover the cost of realignment. So the intent is that it will be developer paid, but that cost will be distributed amongst all developers throughout the city. Since we are asking for land transfer from these parcels, as well as a significant green space buffer. So the intent is to capture it within the DCCs. In that way, it also allows us to adjust the costs over time to ensure that it takes into account inflation.
And for that, some of the area that's been designated for the stream is actually outside the area that's dedicated on the documents to date. Is that intentional or an oversight?
So the plans are conceptual. It's not intended to be a solid 30-meter setback area. Regardless of where the creek is located, all of the applications will be required to follow the riparian areas regulations. So there will be setbacks to the creek, and through the rezoning processes, we will be securing access to the environmental buffer on either side of the creek, whether or not it's on outside of that green space buffer that's included in the plan or it's on private property. We will ensure that we get public access to support future realignment and or restoration efforts, whichever council chooses.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Seeing no other discussion points, I'm going to call the question. Any opposed? Okay, and it's Councillor Day. I could show Councillor Day. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to Marcy. Could you read the next two bylaws, please?
Absolutely. So the next we have bylaw number 2077, the animal control bylaw for adoption.
Okay, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Oops, Councillor Day?
Yes, I'm opposed.
Okay, Councillor Day opposes. And lastly, 10.3.
We have sewer local area sewer or services enlargement amendment bylaws. Bylaw number 2083 for the Colwood main sewer for 484 Delora Drive, and bylaw 2084 for Colwood South sewer 484 Delora Drive. 2087 Colwood main sewer 3354 Wishart Road, and bylaw 2088 Colwood West sewer 3354 Wishart Road.
Thank you very much. Moved by Jordison, second by Grove. Discussion? Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, Councillor Day opposes. And can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. Councillor Ward, Councillor Olson. Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you very much, everyone. I oppose. You would.